Secret like to pick the Queen of Pain with the Shadow Fiend, just for that insane team fight, the mobility, the late game power and presence that it provides.
Right.
And so I think the Queen of Pain pick is a block pick, and I think the Shadow Fiend pick is similar to that, because when you think of Shadow Fiend, of the current pool of players, who do you think of in this game? You're going to think of Mushi, right?
Yeah.
And so
absolutely.
I think that's kind of what it lends itself to.
Naga Siren is the first pickup for Team Secret, followed up by now a Gyrocopter. Toby and I were talking about this when we were having breakfast. He was asking, how much Naga Siren are we going to be seeing in these group stages, and we both kind of thought we're going to be seeing a lot of Naga Siren, particularly the 4-position Naga Siren. We may see a core Naga rise up every once in a while, but I feel like the 4-position Naga Siren is incredibly strong. The utility of the ultimate is insane. The tankiness that she brings to the support role is a little bit unique. And we saw, especially Team Secret, wreck with it at the ESL One Frankfurt.
Yeah, I think that the hero is just incredibly safe to play with. You don't want to play against it if it's a carry, because it's one of those heroes that can just single-handedly win. And so I think a hero like Naga is just a safe pick early on. It doesn't show you too much of your hand, because you can run it in a lot of different roles, but obviously with the Gyrocopter picked up, it's really unlikely that it'll be in one position, especially with the way that Gyro farms. Like, you don't want to split Naga's farm with the Gyrocopter, because you're going to naturally push out all the lanes. So it's probably not going to be a mid Naga, although it can be because it is Radiant side, but I would be surprised.
Tusk is the second pickup for Team Fnatic. Of course, Tusk has been seeing a lot of play, 4-position, off lane. Either way, he's versatile enough in his role that I would say he's a very valuable early pickup. It doesn't set your draft in one way or another. Our second set of bans coming out, the Keeper of the Light, a notable pickup from Team Secret, especially run with the Naga Siren. A lot of spam coming out, a lot of defensive capabilities, and now the Bloodseeker, who has been known to be a very strong combo hero in the current meta. I really feel like Bloodseeker is going to come to the fore in this tournament. I feel like he's going to be one of those heroes that a couple teams are going to pick up in that 3-4 position and just dominate with, simply because he's maybe not necessarily overpowered, but he does bring a very unique skill set that no other hero can really match.
Yeah, we actually didn't see the hero at all yesterday, if I remember correctly. It wasn't even banned by any of the teams, if I remember. I think Bloodseeker is a really good hero, but I think people overrate him in a sense.
Yep.
I don't think that he's not like Leshrac to me, where you pick Leshrac and you can pretty much develop a lineup around him. But I think the concept of that, what you just talked about, like having popular heroes come to the forefront, especially in this metagame, I think it's really the concept of like those those hidden picks or stuff that you don't want to show.
Yeah.
I guess is kind of pointless. I don't think any team will have more than like 1 or 2 pocket strategies. Like if you remember TI3, TI4, you pretty much saw what teams were going to pick. Like there was no real pocket picks or anything like that. It's more just pocket strats, like the way that you play the lineup that matters more than what you're actually going to pick. Because nobody's just going to be like, I'm going to first pick Darkseer and then run him as a mid or something like that. Yeah, stuff like that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying here. Viper now being picked up for Team Secret gives them a good amount of early game power. Both the Gyrocopter and Viper as cores are able to do a good amount of damage there in the early to mid game. The Viper obviously very notable for his tankiness. He's going to be quite a strong matchup versus the Queen of Pain. In a 1-versus-1 scenario, the Viper does quite well because you basically eliminate Shadow Strike from the Queen of Pain's repertoire. Like usually when it's the 1-versus-1, right, you avoid Shadow Strike in the laning phase part and go for maybe like a 0-2-3 build, or maybe you just go 1-1-3 but don't really use the Shadow Strike because that Viper of course has his corrosive skin and you don't want to be actually dealing more damage to yourself than you're dealing to the Viper.
Yeah, I think you still go the 1 level of Dagger just for the ganks.
Right.
And the counter ganks, but
you just don't use it.
Yeah, you just don't use it against the Viper, but I'm curious to see if that's a mid Viper, because I know Arteezy doesn't like playing it. Even back in like the EG days, he would complain about having to play because it's not his type of hero. You can't snowball with it.
But to be fair, what mid player likes playing Viper? You know?
But it's going to be S4, so it's pretty irrelevant, I guess. But nobody really likes to play Viper mid, but it's just such a game-winning hero. Like I think I called it before this tournament. I was
you did. We had a conversation.
Like, Viper and Razor. Viper's going to be picked like all the time. If you can't get Viper, you'll get Razor. Viper, I think, has like an 80% win rate so far in the wild card. And I think teams are just seeing the strength of the hero again. Like, it's been pretty stable, right? It's just annoying to play against. If you decide to put it in a one-on-one position, it beats almost everything. Like, we saw that in, I think it was almost all of MVP Phoenix's games. Like, they would very often just put the Viper one-on-one against the offlaner, and then you could go aggressive tri-lane, or do dual lanes. It just opens up your map a lot.
Yeah, he's just such a strong 1-versus-1 hero that it gives you that opportunity to not only potentially win the mid matchup, but as you said, switch things up, maybe run something aggressive, and then leave the Viper safe lane, which is then even worse than the 1-versus-1 mid, because then the Viper has all that extra room to utilize his movement speed advantage, basically, right? Like, he's very damage over time focused, he slows you down, so being able to have a longer lane to be able to chase you means the Viper is just that much more powerful in a 1-versus-1. But I do like what Fnatic get against the Viper here. So they grab the Visage, but it's a Wind Ranger who is pretty important to me. I feel like Wind Ranger is quite strong versus Viper. The focus fire is a really good way to output a lot of single target physical damage against the Viper, and of course the Wind Run dodging a large share of damage as well. I feel like the Wind Ranger is one of the few heroes that can actually maybe win that 1-versus-1 against Viper, though I still think it's one-sided to the Viper. I still think it's like more like a 60-40.
Yeah, it might even be more than that. I remember, like, I played in some like in-house league recently. Maybe it was FPL, and I had to play that matchup. It was like Wind Ranger versus Viper. You would think that the Wind Run helps a lot, but if you really think about it, like, Wind Ranger has 1 or 2 armor starting in. Her base damage actually isn't that fantastic.
Right.
And every time you load a power shot, the Viper wants to get hit by it. Because it's just not efficient for you to use mana on Wind Run, because it costs so much. Like, all of your spells cost roughly 100 mana. You have, like, a 350 mana pool. Like, you want to be using those on power shots, right?
Yeah.
It's really rare that in the mid matchup that you're going to get an opportunity to shackle to set up for a kill. I am curious to see how they run this Wind Ranger pick, though. I'm pretty sure they're going to put the Quap mid and aggro with, like, Visage, Wind Ranger, plus, like, I don't know. I would do something like Earthshaker, but something more even interesting than that is the fact that Pudge was banned as the last ban. Maybe it's like one of two things, right? It's like Secret either uses it as like a last pick to throw things off for like an offlane Pudge or something like that, or Mushi was just like, I don't really care what I ban, because he's known to do that.
Yeah, that's true. What do you think about the Crystal Maiden? Because this is a support that has been out of the meta for a while, and then this recent patch, an upgrade to her ultimate, an upgrade to Frostbite, has made her a lot more viable. And then actually the last buff as well was Crystal Nova slowing down attack speed, which I think I've talked to you about this before. You said you were talking to one of the pro players, and like this attack speed slow is quite significant, because it means in those sort of like 1-versus-1 where you're zoning out the offlaner or something like that just means you win the right-click battle as well, right?
Yeah, I think AUI pointed that out too when we did our patch analysis video. He said the attack speed slow is pretty significant, but I think it goes beyond that. I think the Crystal Maiden early game just ruins the Queen of Pain. Like, it's one of the better heroes to gank with, because if Frostbite goes off, then it's almost a guaranteed kill.
Yep.
So what I would like to see out of Secret's lineup is they just play aggressively. Like, the Crystal Maiden, I think, can even start in the jungle, grab a smoke, grab boots, and then just at level 2 or 3, when you've got pretty much a level of everything, you just go around the map killing. And I think that the Crystal Maiden pick is also maybe in response to Fnatic potentially aggressive tri-laning. Because that's what I would do if I was Fnatic here, I think I would pick, like, Visage, Wind Ranger plus Earthshaker. That was the old LGD combo that they picked almost every single game that was so successful for them.
Darkseer being the last pickup for Team Secret. Pretty good combination with the Gyrocopter being able to vacuum together for the call down, and then you actually have the Naga Siren Sleep to set it all up beforehand. So you get a good sleep, a couple of heroes are grouped up, you lay down the wall preemptively. You also have the Crystal Nova that's going to be on top of all that, so or rather the Freezing Field as well. So I like the combination, and it does give them an amazing amount of sustain, because Darkseer is also a hero that can afford to go for the mech, and that would then leave our Viper to go for maybe a little bit more stats-focused build and early Aghanims, and I feel just as a whole, that this is so much team fight, and Fnatic are known to be a rather aggressive team and want to be able to fight you, and the lineup that they picked up is more damage focused. It feels like Team Secret are just going to be able to live through that damage. They have enough sustain that they're just going to outlast you, and then their damage over time starts kicking in, whether it's the Ion Shell, the Viper, of course, very damage over time oriented, even certain people like the Gyrocopter early on with his flat cannon. So this is, I like what Team Secret have done with their lineup. It feels like Fnatic are a lot more focused on performance in the early game.
I actually really like that Witch Doctor pick, because if you look at Secret's lineup, they actually don't have a whole lot of disables to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if there's like one support ultimate that really ruins your life, it's the Witch Doctor ultimate. That can turn it by itself.
All right, starting things off here, Team Secret. We've got, well, let's just cover who's playing what first before we actually have a stab at what the lanes are. We got Puppey, who's going to be playing the Crystal Main, Zai on the Darkseer, S4 going to be playing the Viper, Kuro on the Naga Siren, and that leaves Arteezy on the Gyrocopter.
Yeah, I think that's pretty standard. I think that's what we discussed earlier, right? Because you can't really put the Gyrocopter mid, but he's just going to go for the Ring of Aquila, sustain the lane, and I think the better thing for Secret to do here is just run the Crystal Maiden around.
So in which case, then we, like, you just leave the Viper there, you move the Crystal Maiden around. What do Fnatic need to do to actually put pressure on Team Secret? Because I kind of feel like they have to set the tempo in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's not even the lineup thing. I actually really like Fnatic's lineup, but I feel it's more just the fact that if you're Fnatic, you know you're the underdog coming into this game.
Yep.
And so I feel like against a team like Secret, especially, the way to beat them is to set your own pace early and wait for them to get frustrated and overextend. Because I feel like EG is a little bit more disciplined in nature in that regard. I feel like EG is the team that will always have the comeback advantage, but I feel like Secret is the team that really relies on having just like a dominant lead.
All right, and as we get things going here, let's talk about Fnatic. We got Mushi playing the Wind Ranger mid up against S4's Viper. We'll see how that matchup goes. The top lane, we do have a defensive tri-lane. Ketchik Imba is playing the Visage Johnny on the Witch Doctor, KYXY playing that Queen of Pain, and that just leaves Ohio as our off-lane Tusk, who is currently being zoned out quite heavily by Kuro. I did like this early counter ward that I placed out. This blocks out the camp and actually happened to spot out a early laning ward that Secret put out. So that actually is quite fortuitous for him, but is he actually going to be able to come forward in lane enough? Because it is a bit dangerous. Like, Kuro can win the 1-versus-1 matchup, and then if he sticks around a bit too long and Arteezy gets in range, he's going to get rocket barraged down.
Yeah, this is the old Alliance strat too. You just get a support Naga and then give her a Poor Man Shield. And because of her natural move speed, like if you just click on her hero, her stats are unbelievable early game as a support. She's got 6 armor, 320 move speed. Then you've got the block from the Poor. Even if you get tanked by the creep wave, it doesn't matter.
And he's got Arcane Aura as well. Yeah. So he's able to spam out Riptides more often. Top lane looks like Zai's going to be taking some damage. Not level 2 just yet. So the double slows are actually doing a good amount of work. Zai, I think, will survive. He's actually dropping very low here. And a couple more right clicks and they would have got him. But he is going to be forced into the potion. He still had Shadow Strike on him. So that's a big loss for Zai, which means he will be forced back to base. Meanwhile, in the middle lane, we've got an even CS lead here for Mushi. He's just 1 deny up over S4. Of course, feeling a lot of pressure from Johnny. This is sort of a signature thing for Fnatic, though, right?
Yeah, they actually... I think somebody else pointed it out, too, when we were doing breakfast, that this is how they like to play. They like to set up Mushi as much as they possibly can for future success. And so this isn't too surprising. But the thing is, it's a Viper and a Wind Ranger, and it's a lot less scary when you're a Viper, right, against a Wind Ranger, because you just know that her kill potential is so low. And something I want to point out that's actually really interesting, and I was so glad to see this, is if you notice Mushi's skill build, like, this is really different. He's opted to go for 2 into Wind Run this early on, and actually only a single level of Shackle Shot.
Yeah, I really like this as well because I feel like you were talking about it. Like I didn't actually think about the low armor on the Wind Ranger, and that makes a lot of sense. But when I view the Wind Ranger Viper matchup, I look at it as entirely right-click oriented for the Wind Ranger and more focused on CS than anything else. So I like this stats build from Mushi, and I think you brought up a really good point, which was if you're playing this, you do not really want to be spamming out power shots. So the more right-click focused you are, both when it comes to harassing S4, but also playing for CS, I think it's just a better way to play this 1 versus 1.
Yeah. I mean, I talked about that before, how you don't want to spam power shot, but it's still your flash farm mechanic. So that's the most interesting part for me. Like, as a mid player, I'm actually really excited to see how this goes and how this plays, because a lot of things are different right now for me that I don't typically see. Like, if you see Mushi's build, he's actually opted to go for 2 null talismans, and he's skipping the bottle entirely. Because I assume he just doesn't need the bottle.
Because he's not going power shot, right? So he's not spamming it out. So he's focused more on his right-click damage. And right now, I mean, if you look at the damage difference, he's doing 77 a hit while Viper's only doing 67. And when Mushi pops Wind Run, like, Viper's not doing any damage to him. So he's actually just able to, like, just really put pressure on Viper sometimes, or at the very least, secure easy CS. So, it's quite an even matchup so far. Take a look at some of the other lanes, though. We are having some pressure up here at the top lane from Fnatic. They're going to wrap around now with Johnny. Zai, who is level 3, is hidden himself inside the trees, but he's going to be spotted out eventually, I think, or not. The creeps die as the Iron Shell goes out, and Fnatic are going to be forced back. So Zai actually managed to get a lot of experience from that wave, and probably the next wave as well, since Johnny's not going to be in a position to catch him out this time.
Yeah, I think it was a little obvious that they were going for him, because you'll notice that you want to sandwich in between having a creep wave so you can dive under the tower. And Fnatic were just pushing the lane, like, as fast as they could. Like, they're pretty much auto-attacking it down. Now they're doing it because they want to get the tower down, but previously I think they were doing it to dive, and I think he saw that coming.
Yeah.
Like, even Ohio's rotated in for this because he's had such a rough time at bottom. Because that's the thing about the support Naga, right, is that you just set up a hero like Gyro, who's incredibly strong in the laning phase, just to win his lane, and then you can rotate the Naga around to pretty much do whatever you want. She doesn't just have to sit here static in the lane, but first tower of the game is going to go for Fnatic, and I mean, I'm still just really fascinated by this build from Mushi. Like, he's opted to go for 3 in his Shackle Shot, so he's not going to have the best flash farm advantage, but like, his early disables will be really sick. Like, 3-second sun off the bat at 5 minutes is pretty insane, but
yeah,
you're really relying a lot on it. It almost feels all-in-y to me.
Yeah, it really does. Ohio's going to be caught here by Puppey. There's pretty much no chance. In fact, if anything, Team Secret may be the ones in trouble. Ketchugimba actually completes his TP despite the fact that Arteezy's already gone for him. Big Nuke comes out and Arteezy drops low, but not low enough. Fnatic can't finish him up, and now with a couple more flat cannon shots, they're going to be forced back here. Ohio, who doesn't have mana. Mushi's here trying to trap Arteezy in. He eats his way through the trees, making a bit of a juke around, buys the rest of his items, and will end up going down to Ohio here. Oh, Jesus, Ohio dropped pretty low, but Arteezy very obviously trapped due to good rotations out from Team Fnatic. And that's part of the advantage, right? When you put a little bit of all-in pressure in your safe lane and you take that tier 1 tower first, that leaves your supports or maybe even your core open to rotate mass to the bottom lane. Mushi is going to be potentially caught here. Kuro doesn't quite yet have Ensnare. Now he does. The mana gets laid out. Double stuns are going to be out. Power shot being laid in. Kuro's actually going to drop pretty low, but S4 comes in order to clean that last hit. Ketchugimba couldn't really stop that Viper from killing out the Wind Rangers. So in the end, 2-1 advantage going to Team Secret solely because of that pickoff there on Mushi before it actually seemed things were going Fnatic's way.
If you think about it, the current type of mid heroes or the heroes that are played right now are incredibly mobile, and we're starting to see the prevalence of heroes like Dazzle, Keeper of the Light, things like that. And so people just don't really have a heavy focus on like supports that can gank or actually get kills off, right? It's more just play the stack game, try to get into team fights and just go for the 5-man push. But that's why I like the Crystal Maiden and the Naga pickup, because there's actually no way that Mushi was going to get out of that. Like, they had Ensnare, they had Crystal Nova, you've got the Frostbite as well. There's just so many different ways to deal with the mobility that Fnatic have.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you brought up like how good Crystal Maiden is versus the Queen of Pain, because you can't actually blink away, the same kind of single target disable is really good against Wind Ranger as well, who's so dependent on that wind run.
Yeah, it was like the old Dota 1 counter. If there was a Wind Ranger on the other team that was going to play the off lane, then you would just pick Crystal Maiden because you had to force her into a position like that. But I'm just really curious to know what the thought process is behind not getting the power shot at all.
Did you see that? So this early ward that was placed by Puppey earlier managed to spot out the double smoke, but it looks like Kuro is still going to go down here. He pops the images, is able to dodge some damage, but not quite enough. He gets some good damage into Johnny, but it's still going to be a free pickoff for Fnatic, despite the fact that they scouted that one out. A bit curious. Maybe they thought that that smoke meant they were going to rotate around through the top part of the map to catch out S4 somehow, but that seemed, to me at least, a huge mistake from Team Secret.
It was probably just a miscall, because I think they thought they could take that fight, but the Queen of Maiden ultimate is too high, and maybe they weren't entirely sure where things were going, because at the worst, you want to secure that Arteezy lives here. So I don't think it was the worst play, but I think it was a little bit of a mistake. And taking a look at both supports, there is a smoke on Puppey now, and there is a level 6 on S4, and if you notice that S4 decided to go for a 4 in the corrosive skin, and it just hasn't paid off because the Wind Ranger A isn't really getting in a right click fight with him, and P, he doesn't have a level of power shot yet.
So you think I was kind of thinking about that, right? Like, if you are going for a stats build with more win run on Wind Ranger, does that give more incentive for the Viper to go for like less levels in corrosive skin and more on the right click of his own, or because of the fact that, you know, Wind Run is getting a little bit extra levels in man fighting so much, maybe the defensive option is just better? I don't know. I almost kind of agree with his corrosive skin builds. Would you have preferred to see like earlier levels in Nether Toxin in that case?
No, because if Mushi hasn't thrown a single power shot this entire game, then you realize like there's no point in going for the Nether Toxin or the Poison Attack, because the Poison Attack, it's not really going to make a difference too much whether you or not you level it against a Wind Ranger that has 2 levels of the Wind Run, right? Same goes for the Nether Toxin, but the Corrosive Skin I think is just a mid game build in general. Like you grab Corrosive Skin, you get a mechanism. Your hero's like the tankiest hero in all of Dota. And if you look at Fnatic, their sustained fight is actually not that strong.
Oh, catching out Kitchigimba from behind that tower. A 4-man smoke is successful, but now Arteezy's been caught by at least that shackle shot plus the focus fire. Looks like Arteezy is going to be going down. He drops out the call down before he leaves, though. Mushi's going to be the target of the Viper. Unfortunately, the snowball unable to save him. Another hero goes down, and perhaps a third is Zai deep behind the tower. Bakuro with the clutch save there of the Song of Siren in order to reset the fight and make sure it's just a clean 2 for 2. So in the end, despite the fact that Fnatic were the ones surprised by that gank and the 4-man smoke up, it still was quite an even fight.
Yeah, I actually still kind of give the advantage there to Secret, just because, like, I know I'm obsessing a lot over the Wind Ranger build, and maybe I shouldn't, but if you do go for this build without power shot, like, I think it's really cool, but at the same time, you have to be successful early game. Like, because you don't have a flash farm mechanic, that means it's going to take her to, like, level 12 to be able to max out everything, right? If she wants to get a second level of the focus fire. So that means she's naturally going to be far behind. And so it does rely on Mushi to have an early start that's successful to kind of pay off. Otherwise, you're just playing the catch-up game. But I really...
Again, the ward once again caught it out the 4-man smoke.
Okay, and he's playing super far back. They should be able to spot that this is coming for Arteezy. He's going to run away.
But to build on your point, like, we also kind of agreed beforehand that this is sort of the way that Fnatic operate. Like, they need Mushi to do well. So it's not only about the hero, right, but it's also the playstyle Fnatic that you can't afford to let Mushi get shut down because he is your big playmaker. He's the one who makes sure that Fnatic, if he's doing well, Fnatic does well. If he's doing poorly, I don't think I've ever really seen a game where Fnatic still come out on top.
Yeah, but I do like the fact that there's a heavy emphasis on putting as much pressure on Arteezy. Like, Arteezy's typically left relatively uncontested, but the fact that Fnatic are continuing to go after him speaks a lot about the fact that they're playing to win right now.
Yeah.
They're not afraid to smoke deep into the jungle. They're not giving Secret the type of respect that most teams show them, and I think that's overall the right play. And the way that Fnatic are actually building their heroes too, I think both teams are pretty much gearing up for some sort of mid-game fight. Because if you notice that KYXY, instead of going for something more typical like the Yule Scepter that we've been seeing into the Aghanims, or even like an early BKB, he's going for the Bracer into the Robe of the Magi, which I think, I mean, that should mean that he's going to go for drums, right?
Yeah, unless he
top.
just wants a value bracer. KYXY is still going to have a blink.
that-
Oh, he couldn't even get it off in time. That was beautiful timing from Zai. Halfway through the blink animation, you couldn't, Vacuum is not a very long disable, but if you can interrupt somebody's animation like that, he just extended that disable, the extra bit of half-second timing there that was required for the freezing field to do the damage.
Yeah, that was just so well played because it resets the animation. Like, you have to recast. And so just a really good play by Zai reading the situation. But still, it is only the Queen of Pain. I feel like Fnatic are somewhat okay with that. No, they're not. That was their carry. Like, he needs farm progression faster than this because...
It would have been okay if Ketchigemba and Ohio were successful in their gank on Arteezy at the bottom lane, but... that unfortunately didn't work out. Despite the fact that they had a ward and everything, Tusk just wasn't able to get over in time.
So Arteezy's got drums. They've got a mech as well. I think this is the time for them to just go for the map control. And if you're Fnatic, I almost feel as though you have to just get the level 6 onto Johnny and then look for smart fights. Like, right now, the pickoff potential for them isn't too high because their Tusks had such a rough start in the early game when he got zoned out for so long.
Yeah.
So he has to be a little bit concerned about that. And a 4-step's actually going to be the first item for Zai.
Why do you think that is over the the choice of should the Viper go for stats, like maybe some early stats? I mean, we've seen SNY before, maybe a fast Aghanim Scepter, and then the Darkseer goes for the mech, vice versa. What's the pros and cons between the two?
I think the Darkseer going for the mech is actually just naturally worse. Like, because the Viper, you want to be able to stay naturally tanky in these fights, and you don't want to have to rely on the Darkseer being nearby.
Okay.
I actually like the 4-steps because I think it just prolongs the fight as long as possible. But Fnatic are going to run into a pretty sick timing where they're about to hit level 6 on Johnny. They're going to pick up a medallion on their Visage. And once that happens, Cap, there are options for them. Like, they can do the Roshan quite easily. They do have Dire Side for that, and their fight game potential isn't too bad either. Like, they've got drums completed on the Queen of Pain. But I do feel like with that timing, like, you have to pretty much go nonstop. Like, Yoshi's going to pick up a mech. Like, these are the items that you need to pretty much get into fights. And I feel like with Fnatic, the way that they're building, you pretty much have to get into fights.
Yeah, you said very early on that you felt like this Wind Ranger build was sort of all-in-ish in a way where you basically have to do well in the early game, otherwise you don't have the power shot to continue your farm and you'll eventually fall behind. And you're seeing more and more elements of all-in behavior out from Fnatic. Like a big example being the drums on the Queen of Pain. I feel that's very all-in because it's so early stat-focused and will play a serious detriment later on. Ketchigemba is maybe going to be caught out here. Call down does reveal him. Ketchik is going to be going down now as he has no escape whatsoever. So a smoke that is successful for Team Secret. But just to finish up my point here, like the drums, the Ring of Bacillus, like that feels like very all-in, early game focused, and you need to get big dividends out of that stat item. And then the Wind Ranger going for the mech now means that if she doesn't manage to have good fights, hold up, Puppy's going to be the target of a snowball, quickly blowing him up. There's one, and it seems like they'll run away. They don't need to try and go for a second. They know Arteezy is somewhere nearby.
Yeah, I don't really, maybe all-in isn't the right term, but heavily focused or heavily geared towards having the
heavily early to mid-game focused, and if you lose those early game team fights, you're naturally going to fall really far behind.
Yeah, I don't want people to think that or especially that I'm hitting on Fnatic or anything like that, or their items. Like, I think this is really interesting, and I think this is the right approach because I don't think that against a team like Secret, you can just accede the early game completely and hope that something like your late game pays off. I feel like applying the early pressure is the right idea.
Yeah.
But again, they have to start doing it soon. Like, what they're waiting on right now is pretty much Mushi to hit this mech timing, and for their supports to both get level 6. Like, the Witch Doctor's level 6 now. You're not really seeing too much farm progression on the Queen of Pain. So I feel like once Mushi picks up his mech, which is after this creep wave, they should just start running at them.
Arteezy pushing out the bottom lane with little fear. Fnatic not able to find an opening on him for the last few minutes. Johnny, meanwhile, is doing a bit of farming up here in the top lane. Seems like he's got an early belt of strength to, I guess, finish up treads before he starts going for the Aghanim. So maybe he just feels like he needs a little bit more tankiness, but he's going to be in some trouble here. Zai's going to try and run him down, but naturally the Ion Shell damage over time just doesn't pair well against a Witch Doctor who has a heal over time. So Fnatic are going to get into a fight here. The bottom lane, they've already actually retreated ahead of the Naga Siren Sleep. Ketchugimba trying to get the TP out, does get revealed. Oh, the song actually caught him there before the TP could complete, and Ketchugimba will be going down. But I would say Fnatic, that could have been so much worse. A quick retreat managed to make sure that they didn't get completely initiated on by the Kuro ultimate.
Yeah, the problem there was I think they wanted to get into a fight before they could, but Mushi didn't have the mech completed to him, and Johnny shows himself at top. So Secret know that at worst, it's a 4v5 fight. But Mushi was showing himself mid prior to that as well, so I think it was just a little bit of miscommunication by Fnatic, because they should have ran, I think, just 5 seconds earlier, and they would have gotten out scot-free. But a good catch by Kuro, just preemptively throwing out the Song of the Siren out, and they're able to bring down not too big of a hero. Like, it doesn't slow down Fnatic's plans, I feel.
Right. Yeah, they're still going to go for this Tier 1 tower. Maybe presuming that Team Secret have rotated out, they do have some vision of these heroes, but it seems a lot more on just presumption that after one fight like that and a bottom Tier 1 tower push, they naturally rotate out. Blink Dagger's now up for Ohio, so he's got some initiating power to himself. Mushi has that mech and phase boots. I'm presuming you go for the Aghanim Scepter next because you still want to build Wind Ranger into more damage, but it also means that you've actually got a really nice stats build where you're really tanky as a Wind Ranger when you've got both Ags and mech, or at least, you know, tanky for a Wind Ranger anyway.
Yeah, this was the old school build that we used to see, but it's kind of fallen out of popularity because of the lack of damage that she puts out, and just the fact that Aghanim Scepter is such a great item on her, but I like it. I think that this is the correct idea. I think Fnatic could execute a little bit better, but I think overall their game plan isn't bad whatsoever. Like, they have so much team fight on their team, and I feel like the correct play now that you've got pretty much all your core items, is to just march down. Because if you look at the way they build, nobody has a Midas or anything like that. There's not a whole lot of late game potential, so I feel like Fnatic are almost forced into a position where they should go into a fight. But I feel like this was their strategy to begin with, just looking at the item choices alone.
But once again, they're backing down from that fight. I'm getting more and more concerned that we are talking about how Fnatic are wanting to be able to force a fight, at least with their item build and everything. We get this feeling like they're focused on those the team fights that are 15 to 25 minutes to kind of win the beginning of the mid game, that sort of area that can be so important in the current meta. And we're not seeing them force those fights. And as time goes on, Secret are getting more and more of a net worth lead on their 3 cores. So you look at the Viper and the Gyrocopter, they're way far ahead of the Fnatic cores.
Yeah, the score is only 7-5, but if you take a look at the difference in net worth, it's almost 10K. Like, it was like a really sneaky 10K too, but
yeah.
If you look at S4's build alone, like I was talking about how Fnatic didn't have any Midases or they didn't have build-up potential. Like, look at what S4 decided to buy. He decides to go for the Hannah Midas because he realizes that. Like, even he was faster about it than I was, like, recognizing in the game, okay, they don't really have a whole lot of late game potential, so why not just go for the safe route? Like, I've got the mech, and now I can force Fnatic into a position where they overextend. But I think Fnatic are kind of doing things the right way. Like, as weird as it sounds, because we discussed how they had to get active sooner or later, I feel like if you get active and you throw a fight against a team that has a Midas and a Gyrocopter, then the potential is there for you to just straight up lose. So you have to be patient. You have to look for that one really smart engagement. It can't come at like the 40-minute mark, but having it done 1 or 2 minutes later probably doesn't make too big of a difference.
So the idea being that, yes, this is the way they built. They need to try and force some sort of early game team fight, but don't force the wrong fight, right? Like, we haven't seen an opening where Fnatic had an advantage and they walked away. It was always Team Secret were set up in a very good position. Problem is now, as time goes on, it's getting worse and worse. Now Roshan going to Team Secret and Aegis being picked up. This means a big advantage for the next 5 minutes and a big advantage for the next 30 seconds as Ketchugimba gets caught right outside the Roshan pit as well.
Yeah, that's definitely their idea, is to just not take the wrong fight. But at this point, they're just not taking any fights. And so the net worth advantage continues to build in favor of Secret, who are just all going for the late game, I feel. Like, just Arteezy will build towards a Satanic, and at top they actually get a pick off.
That was a big burst of damage. Puppey's going to go down as well, it seems. Nice little double kill there for Ohio. And that's something really important, right? Fnatic, it's really bad that they gave up Roshan and gave up that Aegis because it means that they can't force a fight, right, for another 5 minutes. Or if they do, it's a very risky one to fight into an Aegis. But if the Aegis is already there, then the plan is you got to get pickoffs like that. And a double kill is exactly what Fnatic needed. They put some pressure on that tier 2 tower as well and start continuing the item progression of the Queen of Pain. That Aghanim Scepter is going to be a little bit late than normal, but that is, of course, because she went for the drums build first.
Yeah, and I think Fnatic are completely adapting to the game right now because if you notice that Mushi, he's got a Mithril Hammer, so he can go one of two ways, the Maelstrom or the Deso. I think the Maelstrom is more likely just because of the type of damage that you want to output. And yeah, it is because he's just going for farm now. Like, he hasn't participated in any fights. Like, he's been 1-2-0 since minute 12, I think, since I started tracking it. And so for the last 10 minutes, all he's done is farm. And I think that's the correct idea here. They're not trying to overforce anything. And if you take a look at the Tusk build, too, on Ohio, he's opted to go for the Shadow Blade. So I think this is more of a, let's look for pickoffs now. The moment of time has passed where we can just put this heavy amount of pressure in the mid game, especially with the Aegis gone, like you said. And so I think this is the correct response. Like, go for some pickoff potential and look for things of that nature rather than just all-inning or anything like that.
Yeah, and that's why they gave up the tier 2 tower here in this middle lane. They don't want to try and go into a team fight, even if it is around their own tier 2 tower, simply because that Aegis is still up. So Ohio's quick to try and push out that bottom lane, but he's going to be forced into a rotation back. Team Secret, knowing that Fnatic really don't want to take a team fight right now, are going to take it to Fnatic's front door. They already go uphill, focusing now on that tier 3 tower. Team Secret do walls and ice shards that kind of keeps them in a bad position, but again, these two very tanky heroes are not going to be taken lightly. RTZ, a little bit of damage coming out. Fnatic are just kind of poking and prodding, hoping to be able to bring RTZ low enough that they can kill him while he still has that Aegis, but not commit to a team fight.
Yeah, I think that they just back off, or maybe even go for a fake back because they have a smoke. Like, that power shot just misses, but Puppey actually just shows that he wants to completely back. They're not really getting what they want out of this, because Fnatic can just infinitely hold by spamming out spells. And so it's going to be way too difficult for them to high ground breach at this moment. And really, there's no reason for them to risk it at all. Like, I think Aegis in general is an item that makes teams a little bit too overconfident. But if that Gyro's caught out of position, like, even with the Aegis, they could just blow him up, right? Like, a good Death Ward positioning makes him play defensively, and if he gets shackled, like, anything can happen. So I think the better play there is just to reset and look for pickoff, and that's exactly what's going to happen is Ohio at top.
Yeah, he's going to be going down quite easily. The Walrus Punch leading things off, so the 3-man smoke gang finds Ohio yet another kill. Talking about Fnatic and how they're falling a little bit behind in net worth, but Ohio is the one leading the charge here in net worth, at least for his team, sitting at 9K. Still 12K on the Viper, 13 on the Gyrocopter. But, of course, one good, really good team fight for Fnatic, and they can actually even out this advantage, or at least bring it pretty close.
Yeah, and something to say for Fnatic's lineup at the same time is that a Crystal Maiden starts to fall off a little bit in terms of her disables too. Like, if you notice, she only has a single level of Frostbite, so that's only a 1.5 second disable. And they have ways to deal with the net, because you can blink dodge the animation. Like, there are ways to deal with it, and so Fnatic actually have really mobile heroes against a lineup that doesn't really have the best catch potential. So I think they're going to be pretty pleased with this, and they might even go for the attempt on Artesia top. Like, Ohio's in position right now. They might just want to, like, force the BKB and go back. And it looks like they are trying to pincer him, and there's no ward vision. Like, they know he's completely alone. Like, Ohio, once he spots this midway line, is going to know this isn't a smoke or anything like that at the same time. So maybe this is the attempt at top.
The only potential bailout would be S4 as the Viper sitting farther down. Arteezy is going to be targeted here as he already takes some damage from KYXY. I think they're hoping to be able to burn that BKB already. KYXY S4 is now coming over as well. Zide, they're going to try and blow up Arteezy, but there goes the mech, and it actually keeps him alive enough time to be able to get down the call down, and he's not even going to go down. He's getting healed enough. He lives with just 20 HP. The Maledict is there. The BKB runs out at the last half second, and the Maledict will kill him in the end. So they actually do manage to pick him off because his Aegis expired there as the fight transgressed, but it was still a 3 loss there for Team Fnatic. Not really worth the 1 kill on Arteezy.
Yeah, they were trying to time that Aegis out, and with this ward, they didn't actually see them run through, but everyone was in position, and this might even mean that Mushi's dead. He doesn't have any defensive items. If he just gets ensnared with S4 in position, this should mean a death. He already recognizes that. He's just going to go for the tower.
Oh,
and he might actually get out. Oh!
No, the vacuum is there. Mushi now turns for the tower. He gets it in the end, so he gives up his life. That dying breath does get up that last shot. Meanwhile, Puppey goes for the tower of his own in the top lane. Does manage to snag it before Ketchik Imba could hit the deny.
Yeah, but I really like that Fnatic decided to go for that. The kill on Arteezy, there was just such a fast rotation by Secret. There was almost no chance for them to be able to respond. But I feel like Secret, they're still in firm control of this game. The net worth advantage alone tells the story, right? Like,
yes.
I've been trying to talk about a lot of what Fnatic is doing, but that's mainly because Secret's game plan is clear, and they are leading with it. And so I feel like it's more interesting, I guess, to talk about what Fnatic are doing to try to get back into the game.
It's more interesting to talk about the struggle because you do see Team Secret building more and more of an advantage. Fnatic will find a serious pickoff here on S4, but he's tanky as all hell. Ohio actually has to pop the Shadow Blade and start packing himself up for fear of trading 1-for-1. But in the end, the 3-man gank is successful. Nobody lost on the side of Fnatic, and a very important kill. In fact, that one kill was worth 728 gold for the Witch Doctor, who does actually almost have Aghanim Scepter. That is a gigantic change in power potential for Team Fnatic in these team fights.
Yeah, I know the net worth reads 10k, but if anybody, you've been playing Dota for long enough, you know that Witch Doctor ultimate can completely change your fortunes. We talked about it in the early game last time, right? Or early on in this game. And so I think that it can completely change the fight. You've got an Aghanims on your Queen of Pain, and Ohio's just doing absolute work with the Shadow Blade because Puppey, he's just avoiding Puppey because he realizes that Puppey will most likely have sentries in areas that he's going to traverse through. And so if you notice, like, anytime Puppey shows himself in mid, then he just goes top, and vice versa. Like, he just tries to annoy the hell out of Secret.
We've got Shivas coming in soon for Zai's Darkseer, Gyrocopter about to pick up the Butterfly. So we're getting to the point in time where now Team Secret's farm is getting to a point where they're all getting that first really big late game item. Butterfly for Gyro. The Shivas is huge for Darkseer, I would say. I mean, that increase in HP, like just the general increase in armor and the attack speed slow and everything else, I think Zai's just going to be able to survive through some of these nukes. And kind of same goes with a lot of Team Secret. They have just enough sustain that then it comes down to the right-click damage. And that's just already not that fearsome from Team Fnatic. It's only really on the Wind Ranger. And then that's going to be slowed down quite heavily by things like the Shivas.
Yeah, and Ohio at this bottom lane again, potentially just trying to harass out. I think they're just trying to force rotation towards him, but I think Secret are just going to ignore this and decide to go for this bottom lane, this tier 2. And there's actually no vision from Fnatic, and they're rotating down this Queen of Pain, and KYXY is going to get spotted out by Puppey. And
Ohio, he did get spotted out now. He's going to try and make a snowball play, but it looks like he is stuck 100%. So Fnatic will lose their Tusk, who was getting himself quite a good amount of net worth, but will falter a bit more now. Team Secret well set up, I think, to be able to take that tier 2 tower in the bottom lane.
Yeah, and I think by Fnatic, you should just scramble, start to pressure out this top lane, because you know what Secret's game plan is going to be. The reason they're saving this tier 2 tower for last and why they're marching down right now is I think you just go for this tower and then go for the Roshan immediately after, and then you've got high ground potential for the bottom lane at the same time.
Right.
And you've got pretty much everything you want. But at the same time, Fnatic is still building correctly. Like, if you notice that Mushi's response, even before Arteezy completes anything, is to go for the MKB. Like, he's actually just completely deviating from the norm. And I think this is the correct way. Like, he's adapting to the game rather than just simply saying, I'm going to go all in to get the Aghanim Scepter, right?
Yeah.
Like, he realizes his damage output really relies on being able to get an MKB against a team that has both a Solar Crest and the Butterfly.
Yeah, otherwise it would just be a very simple setup where Team Secret would 5-man into Team Fnatic's base and put both the Gyrocopter with an Aegis and a Viper, uphill beating on the tier 3 tower, and you have to deal with them, otherwise they're going to take out your building. So you have to be able to get some sorts of damage to deal with that evasion. And even just dealing with evasion is not going to be enough because the Gyrocopter and the Viper are still significantly tanky without that. So I think Mushi's has the right idea, but Fnatic are going to need a little bit more damage than just that. And that, of course, is where the Aghanims of the Witch Doctor is going to come in. He does have his level 2 ultimate, and that is quite significant. It looks like Ohio, is he going BKB? Or is he going like a Desolator just to try and increase the single target focus of, say, the Wind Ranger? Like he goes in, punches the Gyrocopter, and that allows Mushi to get a lot of focus fire damage.
I feel like you still need to go for the BKB against Secret's lineup. Like, there's just too much that can deal with you. But Fnatic are going for the smoke round. They know that the entire team is there. This might actually be their best shot at winning a fight, but they have to do it quickly because Secret are beating on these tier 3s, and this might not even be an advantage because they'll have their own high ground.
Oh, they're going to go first for Curl, immediately taking him out. There is going to be no Song of Siren to be able to save them, but already the response is there from Zai. Two-man vacuum while on top, both Ohio
this
and
Death Ward,
Mushi.
though.
Oh, no, he's going to go down. The freezing field is being laid out. Death Ward, though, is focused on S4, but he's just too tanky. He doesn't care. He soaks up all the damage, and now here comes the buyback. Mushi is the first one. Tusk as well lays out his. They need more pickoffs. They need to be able to catch Team Secret, who are on the retreat now, but it doesn't look like they're going to find anything. So really, the only thing that Team Fnatic truly recover, unless Arteezy gets caught here, Ohio kind of playing a small game with him. But yeah, you can't commit. They managed to take away the gem. Because they managed to pick off Kuro first, take him out, make sure there was no Song of Siren set up, and then they immediately had the buybacks, they recovered the gem, which I think is significant enough. Maybe not worth the buybacks out from Team Fnatic, but it does give you some recovery and it gives you some signs of life.
Yeah, the problem is that if you lose that many buybacks, you pretty much have to go for some sort of objective just so you don't fall too far behind. And this might actually be a decent scenario for them where they go for the Roshan.
Yeah.
But they have to get this. They can't really lose this fight or get caught out because both buybacks are on CD. Fnatic is getting quite low. Mushi's going to pop the win run and get out of here, but it doesn't really look like Secret can continue to chase.
Ice Shards blocking him out. S4! Well, no, he gets back to his team. The mech and Team Fnatic are not going to try and go for that pickoff. It would have just put them in a bad position, committing a bit too heavily. So I like what they did there. I actually felt like, yeah, recovering the gem was not enough, but recovering the gem and then actually getting Roshan and picking up the Aegis and not losing anybody after that, I think almost makes the buybacks worth it. I think Fnatic are going to be very happy with the way that played out.
Yeah. I don't think you're happy with using buybacks. Because, like, if you lose this fight, then you're going to lose so much. But
Yeah.
it was like they made the best out of a bad situation. But Secret, I mean, they're just so dominant in their farm right now.
Nice Ice Shards. Arteezy stuck in a bad position, but there goes that Song of Siren. And Arteezy will be able to get away. Brought down to 800 HP in such a short period of time. They're still going to have the ultimate out from KYXY. Arteezy drops lower, but now here comes a vacuum call down. They're going to be able to catch one and a second as the Aegis falls. Johnny, meanwhile, throws out that Death Ward, doing a good amount of damage, but it's still not enough to finish off any one hero. S4 on the front lines. Mushi is going to be forced to try and take him out. Great shackle shot that locks down S4. A bit longer, will be able to get that kill, but between the ensnare and the damage of Arteezy, the Wind Ranger falls once again, and Team Secret are now left with the predicament of whether or not they want to claim that melee ranks for their own.
Yeah, and I think the Queen of Pain is also still in the buyback cold penalty. She's not going to have buyback for another 7 minutes, so her dying here would effectively end the game for Fnatic. So they're just trying to scramble, stay alive whatever they can, but Arteezy, with the help of the urn, is already at full HP. And that did look like a deceptively good fight for Fnatic because Arteezy dropped so low, S4 was already quite low, and you had the Aegis, but they're unable to capitalize, and Secret just outlast them because of the amount of farm that they have.
Yep, Zai is always able to get great counter initiations, and Arteezy, even if he did drop to like 200 HP, it doesn't matter. Pops a flat cannon, is able to get all those shots off, and because of his significant amount of damage that he's rocking right now, it just is so much physical damage that Fnatic can't really recover from there. So 2 sets of Rex is the cost for Fnatic losing that team fight in the middle lane, and they continue to fall farther and farther behind. Team Fnatic almost seem to need to do something drastic now to hope to recover this game.
Yeah, I think part of the issue, if you want to go back to the early game, is the way that they picked both of their supports. Like, you've got a Witch Doctor and a Visage, but both are heroes that really heavily rely on having that Aghanim Scepter at a reasonable time. Johnny, you can argue, got his at an okay time, but Ketchuk Imba is actually a little bit too far behind. Like, getting a 45-minute Visage Aghanim Scepter at this point probably doesn't matter too much just because Arteezy's got a Butterfly. Like, Flat Cannon takes him out so quickly. And that's the issue, is that you have 2 supports that both need farm, but you can't really evenly distribute it. but you do need all 3 stuns to be able to do anything. And I feel like their momentum is just kind of fizzling out more than anything.
Now we've got more luxury items coming in. Boots of Travel being picked up by Zion's Darkseer. And then on top of that, even the support has something to go on here. Ohio is maybe going to be caught out here. The vacuum pulls him back into the call down. They have the vision to be able to catch him out. So Arteezy now jumps into a dominating streak. They lose Ohio. And that's right, the other item I wanted to talk about was the BKB from Puppey, who now has this level 3 freezing field, especially with the way that that ability was buffed up. This is going to be a significant increase in damage for Team Secret, especially since Fnatic do not have any real good ways to stop Puppey from using that freezing field. Pretty much the only way is the Tusk Walrus Punch.
Yeah, now that the Tusk is dead, they're going to feel pretty comfortable about this. And Puppey's actually just going to snake around and try to get in a better position, but there are 2 sentry wards up there, so he has to be careful. And Fnatic are kind of stuck in a rough situation where they don't have buybacks where they really desperately need them, because this is the game losing fight or winning fight potentially for them.
Mushi comes in from the side, hoping to be able to shackle both Arteezy and S4 together. Meanwhile, Johnny actually gets caught. He was hiding in a copse in trees, but Kuro managed to actually find him, and they take out Johnny, who's going to be a primary source of damage, or at least was supposed to be, for Team Fnatic. But now he's down for 45 seconds. Kuro pops the Song of Siren, leads with the ultimate, and is now just giving his time to complete Mega Creeps. That is an 8-second hold, and now Nagasiren, while she is very far forward and will be sacrificed, it does come at the cost of Mega Creeps, and a really bad fight for Team Fnatic as they still get vacuumed up. Wall call down, and the combination is just too much to handle. Team Fnatic, even underneath their fountain, don't stand a chance, and Team Secret will take game number 1.
Yeah, and this was just, it wasn't the flashiest victory, but it was just efficient by Secret. Like Fnatic, they had a pretty good idea of what they wanted to do. You could see that there was a game plan with the way that they built items and the way that they built their heroes, but it just didn't pan out for them because they lost early control so quickly. And they just weren't able to get any towers down. And I actually feel like Secret, there were a few slip-ups, but it didn't even end up mattering because their farm advantage was just so huge.
So Team Fnatic going to take some time to rethink perhaps their approach in game number 1. We'll be back after a short break.
All right, and welcome back, everybody, to the International 2015. We are on the group stages. This is game number 2 between Team Secret and Team Fnatic. I'm giving us a full recap because we did have a bit of a break here between game 1 and game 2. A little bit of network issues, but we're back up now. Of course, myself, Capitalist, joined by Blitz. Blitz, game 1, you want to give us a little recap on how that went for anybody who's just now joining us?
Sure. For the majority of the game, Team Secret were up 7-5, which I think is a little bit deceptive, but they ended up being ahead by like 10k gold. They just consistently outfarmed Team Fnatic, and it was a pretty dominant performance by Secret, but Fnatic did show us some pretty interesting new stuff. The way that they built their heroes, the skill builds, I thought were at least a welcome change to the norm that we normally see.
Yeah, I think that I don't want to like shut down Fnatic too much because they do have some very talented players on their team. I mean, this team is full of like old school legends, and it's just unfortunate seeing them now be in a position where I just don't think they can take Team Secret in just a straight up regular game. So I do think that they need to do some interesting decisions like what they chose in game number 1. They need to try and, I think, be a little bit more focused in their strategy, such as, I mean, they didn't really act on it necessarily, maybe because they didn't see the openings, but we kind of agreed that it felt like they were focusing their strategy very much on, being able to win, this one area of the game. In this case, it was kind of like the 15-minute fights, right? I feel like they need to do something like that. They need to do something targeted in order to get through Team Secret's defense because, as we can see, especially from that game 1, just left to kind of an even game, Team Secret are naturally just going to outplay Fnatic, and you can see from just no action happening, them being able to get a 5,000 gold lead every 7 or 8 minutes, just kind of showed that Team Secret were always in control of the game.
Yeah, I actually think Mushi just has to cut loose, and I think he's one of those players that Secret actually did a really good job of neutralizing. Like, they put him in a matchup where it was Wind Ranger against a Viper. Wind Ranger can't really win that matchup, and that's what we saw. Like, even with the help of Johnny rotating over, he wasn't really able to do anything, and I think that was Secret's plan from the get-go. Pick a hero like Viper, frustrate Mushi, just slow him down as much as we can, because in my opinion, I think that Mushi is one of the, I'd say like 10 or so players that if you have to consider like actual sports, he's kind of like that superstar that you want, that can single-handedly turn your fortunes and just win a game by his performance, right?
Yep.
So they did, Secret, I feel like the game plan was just to neutralize that as much as possible, and they did a good job. But going over the picks and bans, we see Shadow Fiend ban, this time by Secret. I feel like that's just an obvious ban. If you're Dire, you ban SF, like regardless of what position you're in, because Radiant side, Shadow Fiend is just too strong.
Right.
Like, we saw it last game, we see it this game. And on the flip side, Fnatic, they go with, this time they ban the Dazzle again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they ban the Leshrac, and I think that the Leshrac is an obvious ban for a team that has first pick. And I think the Dazzle is just one of those bans, like, you don't want to give up Dazzle or Keeper of the Light in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, I mean, we talked about it last game, right? About how good the Keeper of the Light is on Team Secret, and they take it immediately. No hesitation this time.
Why do you think they ban away the Clockwork? Is it because they have the idea that they're going to go for Keeper of the Light, and Keeper is rather susceptible to the Clockwork? Or do you feel that maybe it's just Ohio, Ohio's a naturally good Clockwork, like he's incredibly good on that offlaner, he's a great playmaker, so they feel like they would be most threatened by a very early aggressive offlane position?
If you think about it like this, they're most likely, it's actually like a back and forth, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is really interesting because you ban the Clockwork because they're two top-tier offlaners. It's the Tusk and the Clockwork, right?
Yeah.
The Clockwork doesn't do too well against Queen of Pain, so I think there's some merit to be said where they're hoping, you ban the Clock and then you leave something in like the Dazzle or something like that, and
right,
then you're able to go that direction. Like, I think it just frees up the draft a lot, and it gives you a premier option. Because by banning the Clockwork out, it's pretty much like Fnatic has to ban, either the Tusk to give themselves like a better chance at having a more favorable offlane, or they went with the route of banning Dazzle, and so Secret gets something that they want. Either they get the Queen of Pain or they get the Tusk, so they're happy regardless.
Right. Our second set of bans now, the Witch Doctor as well as the Bounty Hunter, going to be banned away by Team Secret. Fnatic are going to take away the Viper to start things out. Now, the bans from Team Secret make a lot of sense. The Witch Doctor is pretty problematic, I would say, for any kind of grouping mechanism, such as what the Tusk brings with his Snowball. And then the Bounty Hunter is kind of known, like we've seen even first pick Bounty Hunters in the Wildcard series, where Bounty Hunter does have a lot of value right now because he's an incredibly unique kind of hero playstyle-wise in the first 15 minutes. He forces the enemy team to do a lot, both in drafting and play in the first 10.
Yeah, it's just one of those heroes that also, like, going back to having, like, Mushi or something get a really good start, he's just one of those heroes that can completely turn your fortunes around and equalize everything. Like, we've seen it time and time again, right? Bounty gets off to a good start, they just dominate because you spend so much gold trying to prevent him from doing bounty things.
Right.
Like, it's just a little bit too difficult. And Fnatic are going to pick up the Bane. I think it's just a good hero overall. It's one of the better counters to the heroes that Fnatic already have.
Why do you say, is it the defensive sleep? Is that why it's a good hero? Because I'm actually disagreeing. I just don't really see much of a point of a Bane here. He's not a very popular support hero through the meta, and the only team that really ran it successfully recently was really Cloud9.
Yeah.
I feel like it, just because that Misery's such a good Bane.
It's just one of those heroes that it prevents you from going a lot of the directions that you want to go on if you're secret. Like, it's just a hero that's good against, for example, mobility. Like, you can take away, like, if you're a Storm, for example, against a Bane, the Bane can just lock him down for so long. It's not even just the fact that you can kill him using the Fiend's Grip. Like, it's a sleep timer that's just irritating. It's just the fact that you can potentially have a 3v5 or a 4v5 fight with Bane, right? You just max out the sleep one hero. Even if they get woken up, that's another hero. Like, you're taking somebody out of the fight, whereas you can continue to maneuver. And it's just a hero that goes through BKB, so it's always going to be warranted. The thing about the hero, though, it is very feast or famine. Like, you either get a good start and you start to roll with Bane, which is what we saw with C9, right? That's the type of player that Misery is. But if this hero doesn't have a good start, then it just almost falls off the map completely.
Bloodseeker now picked up. You talk about neutralizing a hero, which is something that Bane does quite well with both his sleep and his Fiend's Grip. Now you've got another sort of neutralizing ability with the Rupture from Bloodseeker. This is very interesting as well because we have now a third core on the table or a potential greedy 4-position Bloodseeker. There is the reason I say there's a possibility that it's a core because Fnatic can run something aggressively here, right? And leave Gyrocopter like safe lane solo, or sorry, Bloodseeker safe lane solo, and run an aggro try with Gyro.
Yeah, I think actually the Bloodseeker is going to be. I really feel like it should be a Mushi hero because it's one of those heroes I feel like just has the potential to snowball so hard. Like I think he wants to be in a position where the game rests on his shoulders. I think he's kind of unique in this day and age in that regard. Like a lot of teams like to play the team aspect angle, but I feel like Mushi's still one of those players that wants the game on, his performance a lot.
Right.
And so I feel like and Bloodseeker almost perfectly fits that bill, and so I think that I would like to see him on that. I do like Secret's pick so far though. Like they've got heroes that they're pretty iconic for in this patch, right? And so I
think they have also left their draft very open-ended.
Yes.
Like, you could go anything for your last two. But that being said, there is slight downside. It is so open-ended because of the fact that your first three are facilitators. They aren't necessarily damage dealers. Rather than him, carrying the game himself. So I feel like there is a lack of power coming from these first three pickups, and this leaves a lot of the damage being focused on the last two, which I do feel like Fnatic with the sort of idea between the 3-4, like being able to have neutralizers, essentially, the Bane and the Bloodseeker, particularly the Bane. I mean, if you're only dealing with two primary sources for damage, two heroes that you really need to focus down, and Bane is already able to take out one of them, Fnatic could be in a very good position in that regard.
Yeah, I actually, and again, we are seeing it again too, by the way, the counter. It's like, if you can't get Viper, like how often have we seen this? Like, I think the last 3 games we've casted. You don't get the Viper, you take the Razor. They're just game-winning heroes. Like, they're not the most fun. They're not really too flashy. But, I mean, they win you games. They're very solid. They're just it's just a lane-dominating hero. Like, you can't really go wrong with a Viper or a Razor. Because A, they're really tanky, B, they harass out better than any hero, and I'm pretty sure that's an S4 Razor. I think they're thinking the same thing I am. It's going to be the Bloodseeker mid. What beats that? Not a lot of heroes can just outright harass him, so just steal his damage. And even if you put the Queen of Pain mid, the Razor should be able to win.
Right, so you're kind of guaranteeing that the mid lane is one. Razor, like going into the mid to late game, is a pretty good counter versus both the Bloodseeker and the Gyrocopter. Bloodseeker's a melee hero, so naturally you're going to have some advantage there, though not as much as you would have over many other melees because Bloodseeker's super fast. But the Gyrocopter as well. The Gyrocopter stealing away his damage, especially like early on when he has just some stats in BKB. His physical damage is a little bit limited, but it also can do a decent amount of impact with that flat cannon. If you take away, say, 20 damage away from the Gyrocopter before the first flat cannon shot, you've taken not just 20 damage away from him, but 100 damage, right? Because he's hoping to be able to hit 5 heroes with that flat cannon shot. So I think that's sort of the way that flat cannon amplifies the physical damage you have already. So too does Razor really negate that advantage quite easily. Now, the Undying was the last pickup from Fnatic. I love that. A lot of team fight, especially since you already have some good holding heroes with the Bane and the Bloodseeker, so the Tombstone is very powerful here. But Team Secret are now going to go for the Clinks, which is going to be a very nice single target focused hero that I think is actually good versus almost all of these heroes on the side of Fnatic. I think it's particularly strong against the cores of both Gyrocopter and Bloodseeker.
Yeah. Did you see the hero I was hovering over before they picked it?
No.
Oh, I hovered over the Weaver because I thought if you're Secret, I just forget about heroes sometimes. If you're Secret, what do you need as your last hero? Like, considering what you already have. You need a hero that can hit high ground. Like, you just need heroes that can hit buildings. Like, I think we were talking about it at the end of the C9 game. It's like, Ember's a good hero, sure. So is Gyrocopter, but neither of them are the heroes that you want to send in the front lines to just hit buildings.
Particularly Ember Spirit. He doesn't hit buildings ever. He sits in the back and slides a fists you every single time, but he can't actually get up and take out those buildings for you. But Clinks certainly can, because Clinks is, first of all, a lot of physical damage, a lot of single target focus, both when it comes to heroes as well as buildings. In fact, you could say so more so for buildings than anything else. But is also like quite tanky thanks to Death Pact. When you are the one controlling when the team fights are happening, Clinks is actually decently tanky because you're obviously going to work that push in with your Death Pact timing.
Yeah, like I think that's completely true overall, and so. Both teams, I mean, it doesn't look like they're heading into each other or anything like that. I think that they're just scouting out. Judging by the item builds, it's actually possible that they decide that, maybe not. They could just try to get aggressive early on if they anticipate the Undying to be the dual offlane. Like,
right.
I think it'll be, yeah, because Ohio's already in position. That means Mushi's quad mid. Okay, it had to be one of those two, I guess. They'll probably do then Undying plus Bloodseeker offlane, and you probably want to dodge that because the Gyro plus Bane is a lot more easy to deal with, I feel.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, generally speaking, you just don't want to fight into the Undying at all, but if you manage to, yes, you successfully dodge it in the first minute, say, you manage to get a single offlaner up against the dual aggression of the Undying +1. But then the Undying just rotates bottom lane. Aren't you stuck in a bad position at that point? Because now you're faced tri-lane versus tri-lane, and then you are then the one forced to rotate?
But you still want them to react to you more than anything. Like, but I think this is like some weird tricky game because both teams are reading each other before anything actually happens. Like Fnatic is going for the counterplay, and then they get counterplayed because it's a little bit too obvious. So now Secret is going to, it's just like a back and forth mind game because you originally saw the Undying at top, right? Because they might have anticipated some sort of dueling. So now you're going to see the TPs. Like, now that you force Fnatic down, then you force yourself down because you can't just leave Arteezy in a situation where he's one-on-one.
Ohio. He's going to be kind of caught here. Actually turns around to go for one of the last right clicks on a creep in order to heal himself up. But the last right click from Arteezy isn't quite enough. Zai does have another Ice Shards coming up in a second, but he just runs down the Bloodseeker, who actually kind of slowed himself down by running into those trees. And Zai is the one to pick up the first blood. So unfortunately for Fnatic, it seems like them forcing Arteezy to rotate actually turns out quite well for Secret. It
was so unlucky for Ohio. He had the Blood Rage on him. Oh, and they're actually going to go on him again. And Is he blocked off from this?
The creeps are blocking him quite heavily. Zai is trying to get in front of him as well, but Ohio will live. Seems that poor man's shield does do a decent amount of work. Johnny's going to pass over his potion, so Ohio stays in the lane for the time being, and now Johnny's going to try and help out this Bloodseeker by harassing Arteezy down a bit.
This is so miserable for Clinks against an Undying because you already have such a terrible HP pool to begin with. So losing your strength, like 17 minus 4, he's already at 378 HP.
At the same time, there is some validity to the fact that Fnatic don't actually have any nuking power to take advantage of that, plus the fact that while he does drop low in HP, percentage-wise, he's not low, right? So Bloodseeker isn't actually getting a big benefit out of Thirst.
Yeah, but you still don't want to be at... He's at 302 health right now. Like, if he gets right-clicked once by Bloodseeker, you played against it before, you get hit once by Bloodseeker and like... and you're that low, then you just die because he can just chase you down. He doesn't really care if the Rubik's there or not. Once he gets a level or two of Thirst, then I'm pretty sure he's just going to try to run on Arteezy, and that's the play. And in the mid game, they have a ton of bursts. I mean, they've got the Queen of Pain. Ultimate, like if Arteezy isn't careful, there's a lot of potential for that, but I'm interested to see mainly how he decides to itemize. Like, there's a pretty standard build nowadays that's been floating around. You go like Aquila, Soul Ring.
Ooh, Arteezy actually got caught. I was going to say he needs to just continue to try and kite around the Bloodseeker, but Ohio very smart, recognizing what the best opportunity is. He gets for the very early boots and then immediately pushes forward alongside the Undying to force Arteezy to use that mana. And Clinks does have a very limited mana pool, particularly if he's spamming out Searing Arrows for CS.
Yeah, that's why you have to go for the Soul Ring at some point, but... I mean, this is just an awkward situation because Arteezy always has like 300 HP because of the decay, and so this is just a rough matchup. And something we haven't talked about, I guess, is just the fact that the bottom lane has been pretty successful for, I'd say, and actually...
Oh, wow.
What?
Jumping in. Mushi actually managed to get S4. I was watching the Bloodseeker get aggressive on Kuro and Arteezy at top, but they managed to actually get the kill in the middle lane. Mushi coming up big.
I'm not used to seeing that. S4 just die like that.
Yeah.
And this is a matchup where I guess Queen of Pain does okay, but the Razor should also do okay, so he must have just taken too much damage from that dagger. Like, I just didn't anticipate either of them really dying here in this situation, but especially since S4 has a high ground ward. Like, he should be able to spot the aggression coming, but I really want to see how that had happened. But Mushi's going to grab the top rune, and with this advantage now, like we talked about it before, Ken, right? Like, we really emphasize that Mushi is one of those heroes or players that really likes to play the hero that can just solo take over a game. And I feel like he's just going to be pissed now. He's going to be like, we lost that last game. I wasn't able to have impact, but this game, you know, like I'm going to just go out all out.
Yeah, and he's already picked up the early kill on the Razor, but second, he has a gigantic CS advantage over S4, and that's only going to grow, especially now that he's got the extra Null Talisman, such a heavy stat build, and then the Illusions as well, obviously adding a lot of right-click. S4 basically sacks some HP in order to take away that advantage, but is going to be forced to using his health potion here sometime soon, because again, you don't want to leave yourself too low against that Bloodseeker. It makes this top lane all the harder than it already is for Team Secret.
I think S4 is going to get dived on right now.
Yep, Kuro's in some serious trouble. Tombstone gets laid out. Ohio trying to go for that last right click. Kuro has nowhere to run to. In fact, they even have the dust. Arteezy's done for as well. Queen of Pain does manage to pick up the kill on S4, but Arteezy, yeah, he's going to be going down before that dust runs out. So 2 kills up in the top lane, plus they managed to take out S4 again in middle. You're absolutely right. They did dive S4. Bottom lane, Snowball actually dodges the first call down shot, but the second one still hits Zai. And KYXY picks up now a 5th kill for Fnatic. Fnatic striking back big time here in game number 2.
They're just rolling right now. Like, I was focused on mid because I knew that Mushi was going to kill him. And then you were focused on, like, there's just so much action going on. Like, Mushi's reading the situations perfectly. Like, the thing is that it's easy for me to call as a caster the moves. Like when I said he's going to dive him right here, it's easier for me to see because I can see all situations at once, right? But the fact that he was able to read that situation and he makes that play is just insane to me. Because if there was any sort of TP support, the turnaround potential is high, but he decides to go for it. He reads his instincts correctly. S4 was sitting around like 600 HP and Mushi decides to just YOLO in for it, and he manages to pick up the kill, and now this is such a significant lead because Razor, a hero like Viper, doesn't have the best flash farm potential. Like, Plasma Field isn't optimal for that.
and you're picking the heroes again to win the lane, and you're no longer winning the lane whatsoever.
Right.
And the Queen of Pain just has so much more snowball potential than you, once she starts to build up levels especially. And if you look at Secret's lineup, they don't actually have the best way to deal with her, and so this early advantage that he's building up it's not going to get better for S4 over time. He's not playing a hero like Shadow Fiend where things progressively improve. He's Razor, who's going to be pretty static in his lane. Like, he can't fall back to the jungle or anything like that. He pretty much just has to take this level of abuse.
Yeah, the one advantage that Razor like sometimes has with Plasma Field is like farming up a stack, right, and trying to get the Plasma Field on both sides. Say that this stack in the hard camp, but that's not possible. Like, Keeper of the Light is very focused on jungling because what else is he going to do at this point in time? Tusk goes down again in the bottom lane as Ketchigimba and KYXY find the opportunity, and Team Secret are rapidly running out of space here as now Fnatic are pushing aggressively up in the top lane. They've taken away that tier 1 tower, which you know means they're going to start making frequent invasions into the jungle. So the one real safe harbor, it seemed like, for farming, which was their own jungle, is going to be taken away from them sometime soon, and Puppey is not ready for it. He's only level 3. He's not really ready to defend towers or be a part of team fights yet. He's not a factor at all.
Yeah, and I did not see this shellacking coming in. Like, any single time we turn our head, somebody from Secret has died. Fnatic is almost averaging a kill a minute right now, and it's hard to keep up because you don't expect these deaths, and Fnatic just showing that they are a team to be dealt with, and Mushi's just having an insane game right now. Like, he's got 41 CS with 2 kills, both of them being solo kills. And I guess it's hard to really tell, but as a mid player, dying twice solo, it A, hurts your confidence a lot, and B, especially since it's a solo kill, you're getting so much more experience over the other person. It's really fairly significant that he continues to get solo kills more than anything, because it just makes it so hard for this Razor to catch back up into this matchup.
We have Rupture now available for Ohio. He looks like he really wants to go for RTZ up here, but he doesn't have dust of his own. Johnny is bringing some now. Honestly, I think they should just pass off the dust to Ohio and leave him solo up here in this lane. And that way he can pretty much always threaten RTZ by himself. He really doesn't need an extra pair of hands unless RTZ has a little bit of backup behind him. But even then, I feel like if again, with the supports that Team Secret went for, because, again, calling them, like, facilitators, I think it just sticks in my mind because I think it describes them very well. They don't necessarily bring any damage themselves. So, like, heroes like Rubik and Keeper of the Light, even if they can stop the Bloodseeker from killing the Clinks, they won't be able to punish the Bloodseeker.
Yeah, Bloodseeker, or even Rubik, isn't very good at holding off offenses. Like, it's a hero that you want to prefer to initiate or counter-initiate with, but against a hero like Bloodseeker, like, the 2-second lift isn't really going to be able to do much, and so it's really difficult for anybody to survive. And if you notice, like, Secret are pretty much isolated on this half of the map. Like, they're kind of scared to branch out. Like, they sat 2 heroes behind S4, but that means Arteezy can't farm. And you pretty much can't send anybody bottom anymore because, as we saw last game, Gyrocopter is just such a godly laner because he alone with Rocket Barrage can just pretty much kill you, and Rupture's going to go off at top, but no stuns.
Yep, just forcing the TP out. That's good enough. They have the Tombstone laid out behind the tower, so this means the creep wave will push into this tier 2, and doesn't seem like Team Secret have many ways to be able to defend. In fact, Arteezy already forced out, and they get another kill on the Keeper of the Light, who tried to make the escape as they were farming up that hard camp. So not only do they pick up the kill, the tier 2 tower is completely forfeit now. Team Secret are losing all ground here by the 10-minute mark, which is insane.
They actually just lost control of the jungle as well. Like, I drew that line, right? And I was like, this is the outline. Nope, can't go there anymore either, because once you lose this tier 2 tower at top, there's actually almost nothing that's going to deter you. And if you're Fnatic, then the next target is to go for this mid tower. And then from there, you can pretty much just make night raids, you know? Like, every single time it's night, you just smoke up, go to that half, and then just let KYXY farm wherever he wants. And the problem right now for Secret is that none of their cores can really jungle. Like, if you notice, it's still pretty much just Puppey that's going for it, and now this kind of feels like a desperation smoke to open the map up again. And so Arteezy's gonna, try to set this up, and they might actually
Johnny. They actually bring a good amount of burst damage in, almost killing him. Nice sleep there. Ketchigimba managed to pull off the deny, and now here comes the turnaround with the Rupture already laid out. Arteezy is stuck here, and Mushi is, I believe, they're gonna go for some damage.
They're pinging. Oh, they actually.
Yep, now they lay out the counter ward. Arteezy is gonna be caught here. The Rupture runs out, but Mushi's still able to get the kill with the last bit of nuke damage, and they also pick up the Rubik as well. So Team Fnatic Fnatic 9-2 now. So yes, they lose the Undying, but they pick up a couple more kills, well worth the trade up by itself, but are also seemingly going to get even more of a net worth advantage by taking the tier 1 tower bottom lane.
You can't even tell that Ohio was sent to the offlane.
No,
Like,
you
that's
really
the
can't.
crazy thing. The amount of farm that he has right now, for people that aren't aware, like the fact that you have a Midas, power treads, and 1k gold at just 11 minutes, that's fantastic regardless of what lane you are. And another kill goes, they are actually just being picked apart right now.
Yeah, Team Secret just falling apart before our very eyes. Team Secret, who were for many the favorites of this tournament, sort of the invincible team, is actually showing, I would say, some very large weakness against one of the biggest underdogs of this whole entire tournament. I think many people believe that Fnatic were going to be a bottom 8 team.
Honestly, Fnatic just laned this really brilliantly. Like,
Yeah.
there was no real lane that you could point to and say they had an advantage. Like, the first blood was nice, but at the end of the day, like I said, it was a Bloodseeker and Undying. Every single time that the Undying cast a K, Arteezy pretty much has to run away. Like, that's what you saw, right? He gets the KD, has 300 HP, and then the Bloodseeker just continues to farm. And any opportunity where you're low, you just die. Because the Keeper of the Light is really focused on jungling, so he can't rotate over. The Rubik is not a good defensive support whatsoever. Like, your base damage is so incredibly low, your nukes cost so much just to use to harass to begin with, so it's just way too hard for him to defend Arteezy there. And Klinks isn't one of those heroes that is self-sufficient to begin with. And at that bottom lane, Bane plus Gyrocopter, like, if you get slept, you're dead, because you're going to get run down by Rocket Barrage every single time. So you're just seeing complete dominance. And I mean, I'm not even covering Mushi right now because all the lanes just went so well for him. The fact that he got 2 solo kills on a player like S4 is pretty ridiculous, and it looks like he's going to pick up something like a 15-minute Aghanim Scepter. And I think this is the right choice because he's just looking to snowball and get as far ahead as he can right now.
3-man smoke up, looking to catch somebody underneath that tower, and they'll find Kuro immediately. Similar situation to game number 1, except for the roles are completely reversed. Fnatic are the ones getting the successful smoke ink into that tier 1 and will now take it away from Team Secret.
What I'd like to see right now from Fnatic is just to continue the aggression. Like I said, the next target has to be this mid tower, right? You want to just completely open up the jungle if you're Fnatic, and what they're going for right now, Mushi.
Oh no! Missed Sonic Wave! Mushi, uncharacteristic mistake from him, and it looks like he's going to pay for it. A blink is up. He will actually be able to make the turnaround here as the rest of the team comes in, controls the 2 attackers on Mushi. Tusk as well as the Razor. Now they're going to go for Kuro as well. Came in with the TP, but will immediately go down. Double kill for Mushi. 3 out from Team Secret, and that tier 1 tower is going to be forfeit.
They just can't survive right now. Like, the fights that Secret took right there were pretty ideal. They were under a tower, but the Coddle gets hit by one thing. The Bloodseeker then has 450 move speed, and then he's running around, 2-tapping people, and the aggression right now that they're laying on. Like, I'd like to see a Shadow Blade or something like that from Ohio. Or I guess he's going to go for the Yasha. Oh, this is going to be an SNY then. Like, but I would like to just see continued aggression, like, non-stop around the map.
Yeah.
I thought a Shadow Blade would be okay in this situation just so you can continue to put up pressure and make the supports poor, but SNY is just as good because there's no burst damage on. So if you go for an SNY, there's nothing really that's going to kill you immediately. I feel like going for a BKB this early isn't worth it, but they really have Secret have to make something happen. Like, they're giving up a kill a minute. Fnatic are actually keeping that pace. Like I said it early game, and you know it was like 7-1 at 7 minutes. But again,
Good silence to come out from Ohio, though. Perhaps this can set up Ohio to go for some kills. In fact, sure enough, he already stuns coming forward, but the blinding light is there, and Ohio immediately has to back himself away from that. Kuro, though, is going to be cleaned up now as Mushi comes in. They still brought a couple of heroes low. Team Secret are on the retreat back to their tier 2 tower. So 1-for-1 trade-off. Fnatic seemingly not going to back down from a fight just yet. They're going to keep on pushing forward. Still, though, they're pushing into a Keeper of the Light. No matter how far ahead they are, they do need to be careful of that constant pushback damage.
yeah, that was a good smoke, but even in the best of situations, you're trading 1-for-1 there, and so you do have to get away with a little bit more than that, especially in a smoke ink. But if you're in a position where you're this far behind, then the better move is to simply just go for any kill that you can. Like, a trade is okay here, and I didn't even realize how absurd the net worth lead was, but we should definitely at least like, that's for 15 minutes into the game for them to build up that sort of lead. Like, they're getting up 1,000 gold per minute over Secret right now.
Pretty insane stuff, and with it always happens, right? When you've got this kind of control, it just naturally built into more and more and more. So as they get all these kills, they're getting more towers, they start getting more map aggressive vision, and situations like this occur where Kuro is spotted out, putting both his sentry here, and they now see that he's missing one of his wards, so very presumably they're going to know that it's some sort of top river ward that was placed by Kuro. That the map vision is going to be very few and far between for Team Secret, and they just are going to be forced into playing very grouped up and very defensively. Sure enough, Ketchikimba already takes away that river ward, and we'll also make sure he takes that bounty rune as well.
Yeah, Fnatic right now are just eating up all the space that Secret have, and Secret's lineup just was not designed to get behind it any phase of the game. Because you're seeing right now what's going on is that the Razor and the Clinks are just farming these neutral camps, but they're doing it so slowly.
Poor Zai gets caught out by the Fiend's Grip with the double damage on Mushi. No need to use Sonic Wave when you have that kind of advantage. You know it's a free kill if the Queen of Pain with Aghanim Scepter isn't willing to blow Sonic Wave for it.
Yeah, she's like, I really don't have to go.
I mean, it's got a low enough cooldown, but she's like, I just really don't want to use the mana, and I may find another kill in the next 30 seconds, and sure enough, that's exactly what happens. Godlike spree already from Mushi at 17 minutes as he finds another pick-off, this time on Kuro.
Yeah, this is, again, going back to what we talked about. Like, this is what Mushi can do to your team. He's just getting solo pick-offs left and right. And it's just brutal right now. Like, Secret are trying to scramble. They're trying to farm out whatever they can and buy RTZ some time so that he can start the split push game. Because that's their main hope back into this game right now. Especially with the lead that's built up. Because Fnatic, all they're going to have to do right now is go for the Roshan. And then they can pretty much play it safe. And continue to put that stranglehold on a Secret. Because all three of your cores are so farmed that they're self-sufficient and independent at this point. That they don't have to play together at any phase anymore.
Right.
Because it's too hard for Mushi to die right now. Because looking at Secret's lineup, they don't have enough lockdown. The Bloodseeker and the Gyrocopter can just turn things around. So as long as one support is with them, then it becomes way too difficult to do anything. So if you're Secret, the ideal standard right now is just to continue to farm out the jungle however you can. But just look how slow it is for this Razor.
Yeah, Razor doesn't have many options. RTZ, of course, is going to farm out the jungle a bit faster, but you're right. S4, he's still operating on pretty much just upgraded boots. He's got a Bracer, Wraithband, and Bottle with him, but not even like a mid-game item being had by him just yet. Fnatic making an invasion into the jungle, are going to grab Zai immediately. He will be the first one out. Tombstone was laid down as well, so Team Secret need to try and get away from this one. Puppey couldn't even complete his TP out. Fnatic take out two and perhaps a third. Yep, Clinks, he also falls. Mushi finds him, and that will be a 1-2-3 and push into Tier 2 tower. Fnatic, it seems like we're just going to see a straight-up GG soon.
Yeah, at this point, Secret just... there's nowhere for them to farm anymore. And, you know, they're making the right steps to try to come back into this game, but it's the limitations of their lineup right now, I feel, where they just, none of their cores can really go to the jungle. Like, Tusk isn't a hero that's going to come back from the jungle, nor is Clinks, nor is Razor. Like, those are heroes that depend on tower gold and building up an advantage and being able to parlay that into just pickoffs. But right now, we're just seeing Fnatic just take complete control of the game. This is what you wanted to see out of them last game, but this game, I mean, things are completely different. Just because of how well Mushi's playing. Like, I don't even think this is Secret playing inherently terribly in any sort of situation. It's just that Mushi is just doing whatever he wants with them. Like, I really feel like he's just mad. He's saying to himself, like, why did I even bother, like, losing that last game? Like, I'm Mushi. Like, I get to do whatever I want.
And now with the Aghanims and upcoming Octarine core, he's going to have a 30-second cooldown on his Sonic Wave, and Blink also goes to an absurd, like, 4.5 seconds or something like that. Like, it just becomes a hero that's all over the place and has nukes constantly. And with the level advantage he still has over Team Secret, he's just going to be blowing up heroes left and right. Bloodseeker, of course, is still quite a happy camper. He's got Hanamitis, SNY, 2,400 gold. We still haven't even gotten to the period of time where Hanamitis has paid for itself yet. So as just goes to show, as this game goes on, Ohio's going to be raking in even more items and even larger of a net worth lead over Team Secret than they already have. I mean, if you just look at the core positions, pretty much every single core of Fnatic has double the net worth of the respective core from Team Secret.
Yeah, and the thing is, Ohio is buying wards for his supports now, so they can get farmed now. Like, he's just like, don't worry, guys, I got this. And the net worth lead is pretty steady, but you can see some comeback potential. I mean, I think I was watching like the end of the Cloud9 game, and they were up 2 sets of racks in like 20k, and so this type of lead isn't insurmountable by any means. It's just that the road to getting there right now is quite hard because of how Fnatic's playing. Like, they're playing really close to the vest. They're not forcing anything. Like, they haven't even tried to breach high ground or go for the Roshan right now. What they're relying on more than anything is complete map control and dominance, and I feel like they're just trying to crush Secret Spirits.
Oh, look at this. Ketchigimba. He set himself up quite the nice little trap here. He four-stepped up into the trees and set down both a ward and counter ward, and is ready to go with a Fiend's Grip hold or sleep, and then Fiend's Grip, just any sort of delaying factor to get his allies to come over and help him out.
Yeah, I think he's just clowning. Like, he was just trying to force staff over the hill in case anybody was nearby, but it's pretty irrelevant. I think what Fnatic should do is go for the Roshan, and I feel like what Secret should do in response is just try to pressure this top tower as much as they can, as quick as they can, because there's no way that you're going to contest that Rosh fight. Like, I feel like that's just a death sentence. None of your team has farm right now. There's just no point in dueling the net worths. Like, go for the split push at top. Try to do whatever you can. Like, I think that's like the better play overall.
Plays defensive as humanly possible, try and draw out the game later and later, and if Fnatic want to try and force it, just hope they make mistakes and push in the process of pushing uphill.
Yeah, exactly, because that can definitely happen. In a game of Dota, nobody's really perfect, and so it's not ideal to rely on the mistakes of your opponents, but it's still better than what's happening right now.
Arteezy going to be hit by that Fiend's Grip. Mushi pops the ultimate. Arteezy will walk away with just the slightest bit of HP left. Mushi still has a blink, though. Will catch Arteezy in the end. The dust fades, but unfortunately he's too low. The Bloodseeker passive still spies him out. And Fnatic get yet another kill for now a beyond godlike spree for Queen of Pain.
Yeah, he's 11-0 right now. He's had such a sick game, and with this, I'm pretty sure it's going to be an Octarine Core, because if he was going to go for the Bloodstone, he would have had it. That means, can you really lock down the Queen of Pain for 4 seconds? Like, I don't even think Secret's lineup has that much disable on it. Like, the lift is for 2, 1.5, like...
Oh, Jesus, Mushi's just jumping in, my God. He's just trying to force something. He doesn't even have... He's not even the one with the Aegis. I thought for a second there I misread who grabbed the Aegis, and it was actually Mushi. But no, Mushi's just like, whatever. I'm going to jump in there, don't care. And he still manages to get out, despite the fact that he didn't have Octarine Core yet. His allies help him out with a couple of defensive force staffs, and he is good to go.
Yeah, it's actually insane that he's just allowed to blink there. And if you notice, Secret's wards, though, they're still placing good wards. They have vision in areas that they need to, where they think they're going to get assaulted from. But right now, if you look at Fnatic's wards, I guess we don't talk about wards enough in general, but the way that they're warding is just to strangle Secret. It's just to kind of cut off wherever farm angles they can go for. Like, this makes it so that nobody can farm the Ancients and they can't go for the Rosh attempt. This is the entrance to the jungle, which is a lot more safe, because you notice there's already a preemptive ward there, right? And then they're just continuing to ward in places so that there's nowhere that Secret feels safe. Like, before you even leave the base, you're being cut off. Like, look at Arteezy's options right now. He's trying to farm the enemy Ancients because he realizes, like, if there's a ward in this area and he gets picked off, then that's a free Roshan and a kill.
Yeah, especially like the fact that he's coupling the wards. Mushi, there's no way he dies here, right? He's got to blink up in a second. Ooh, that was actually closer than I expected, but goes to show the power of Clinks. Now Ohio is going to have some slight issues. They actually brought S4 back. They can easily get this kill, but Ohio gets the force staff away, and he still had a bit of mana left. I was going to say earlier that Puppey, the Keeper of the Light, is a decent, like, very, very soft, but he is a counter to the Bloodseeker in that he has both Blinding Light, which is good at being able to just stop the Bloodseeker's damage, which is obviously priority in right clicks, and then also his Mana Link, which is quite good because Bloodseeker relies on his innate mobility when people are at low HP.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, Bloodseeker or Keeper of the Light is just, it's just an annoying hero to play against. Like, once there's 4 staffs in the game, Light, and just like triple mana off, but
oh,
we go.
Mushi gets a 3-man Sonic Wave. The Snowball manages to save the Keeper of the Light for the time being, but it only provides a slight moratorium in his death.
Yeah, Fnatic, the crazy thing is they haven't even gone for Roshan. Like, how often, or actually they have, but
yeah,
it took them so long to do it originally that they don't even need it to go high ground, is what I mean. Like, this, it's pretty unnecessary at this point. Because
yeah, normally you would wait for the next Roshan before you try and push uphill, right? But Fnatic are just so far ahead, they're going to go uphill with the first Roshan.
Yeah, they're just at this point, they don't really care. Like, I think even without the Roshan, it's just absolutely securing it in S4. Last Bastion of defense.
Yeah, he tries to back himself away, but he just rums himself to death with the Rupture on top. Gyrocopter secures that last hit. Kuro running forward straight into the Tombstone. Doesn't really care. Fnatic, though, very much focused on objective gaming. They've taken out the mid lane of Rax and immediately slide on up to the top lane, not wanting to give Team Secret any room to be able to make a comeback. So it seems, well, Team Secret, they're still going to try and fight this one out. They do not have the Razor. Clinks now has a Desolator ready to go, but the Tier 3 tower is about to fall. Another blast gets laid out and does bring at least KYXY low. He still has that Aegis. Good to go, though. Zai going to be slowed down, actually forced to snowball there because he didn't want to get hit by the silence. S4 now come to the foray, the ultimate. And the pushback there is able to get the Gyrocopter down. S4 comes forward. They manage to clean up one already. S4 drops quite low, but they can't pursue him out. Fnatic are still healthy as a full 5-man crew and are able to finish up that melee at Rax. And seems like they're going to be able to stick around for the range Rax as well, as Team Secret only operating with 3 heroes right now. KYXY takes just one shot before immediately there's a response from Team Fnatic. Slow down Arteezy and make him asleep. The homing missile comes in, bonks him up, but Fnatic don't care. They've taken that second lane of Rax and will immediately back up to refuel and probably pick up a couple of items before they now go for Megas.
Yeah, you can even wait for the Roshan if you absolutely want to secure this game. And that might actually be what they shoot to go for, because you just want to make absolute sure that this isn't a game that you lose.
Yeah.
Like, Fnatic have done everything that they possibly can to secure this game. I think the net worth lead has to be at least 30K. Yeah, it is. It might even be a little bit greater than that once the time passes. And I mean, the farm advantage alone is just so hard to come back from. And Secret had to expend, like, what, 3 buybacks there, and they weren't even able to hold Rex. So when you're doing that, it just continues to kind of shut you out. And Secret are going to go for the smoke gank, but this is like, you have to get something out of this. This is a super YOLO maneuver. They know that Kuchik Imp is right here, and he actually manages to get himself away at the same time.
Yeah, the good play there, being able to Glimmer back himself away. KYXY is going to respond, though. He's got his BKB, turns and fights the rest of the team. Good snowball out. Zai's just trying to get them away from that call-down area, but Mushi cleans him up with a huge Sonic Wave. GG. Team Secret are done with this game. Incredibly one-sided win for Team Fnatic. Even more one-sided than our first game that went to Team Secret. Quite the weird event. Like, turn of events that just happens there, that Team Secret have such a dominant showing in game number 1, and that's sort of the way the storyline was meant to unfold, and then Fnatic strike back incredibly hard in game number 2 with just a really well put together draft, and the way they set up the laning phase seemed to be the most important thing.
Yeah, I think the C region in general has such a heavy emphasis on winning the laning phase more than anything, so they can just play off the snowball, and that's a really easy way to win. And I mean, Fnatic just executed so well. Like I kept saying, but they managed to keep up that pace of getting a kill a minute. And aside from the 2 kills that Secret got early game, the score essentially became 30-1, like after the first 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty absurd if you think about it.
So Team Secret, the team that's supposed to be that first place slot, take a little bit of a black eye here from Team Fnatic, but this does close out our series. We're now going to move on to our next game in the group stage. It is going to be Complexity versus LGD. Once again, sort of polar opposites, I would say, in the Dota scene face off in this third stream. So I hope you guys stick around. We'll be back after a bit of a break.